Well, hello everyone, and thank you for being with us today. Just a little bit of background. We really appreciate all the support that everyone's given us. We've had about 40 sessions now over the past 6-7 months, with nearly 4,000 participants from all over the world joining us. We took a short break over summer, and we're now kicking off this second season. And I'm very, very pleased to welcome my good friend here, Nigel Verdon, the founder and CEO of Railsbank. Just some quick background about Nigel. Nigel is a banking platform and API evangelist. I mean, one of the nicest guys I know and that I've met over the past 10, 12 years working in this arena called Fintech. His biography on Crunchbase says that Nigel knows more about payments and foreign exchange than is healthy. I can attest to that. It is slightly worrying how detailed Nigel's knowledge is on this subject. He started his career as an investment banker, but before deciding to use his expertise and know-how to build a variety of fintech financial services startups, let's put it that way, rather than fintech. He started with Evolution Consulting Group, a technology advisory firms for banks and private equity, then on to RabbitFX, a foreign exchange specialist for private clients, expanding into FX Capital Group, foreign exchange specialist for corporates, which then morphed into the Currency Cloud, which is one of the leading fintech startups in Europe. Nigel was also very instrumental in his previous career with the successful electronification strategy at Dresdner Kleinwort Benson in the digital markets electronic trading business. He splits his time between the UK and the south of France, and now increasing in Singapore as well, where we'll talk a little bit about his global expansion of Railsbank. He is known in England as England's premier wine bore, but I also know that he's a guitar enthusiast, a music enthusiast, builds his own guitars. I believe I remember watching with great interest his project to make guitar with his daughter, I think it was, around her 16th birthday. Is that right, Nigel?
Yes,
I think.
yes.
Yeah. And so a man of many, many talents, both professionally and privately. And thank you, Nigel, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Nasir, for the invitation. It's good to catch up with you as well. I haven't seen you for a good few months, so it's good to catch up.
Well, seeing anyone at the moment's a bit tricky, isn't it? So, Nigel is currently locked in quarantine in his hotel room in Singapore, waiting to be able to go back to his apartment. So we really appreciate Nigel for being here with us from Singapore. Nigel, you've had an incredibly varied career, going from the banking industry to setting up some of the most successful startups in the financial services arena over the past 10, 12 years. What's been the driving force? What made you make that switch and really want to build your own companies and make change happen?
Sure, it's probably being annoyed at things. For example, when I left Swiss Bank Corp to found Evolution, that was we were trying to get lots of change done, and the frustration things weren't happening as fast. We thought, well, hey, let's go and build a company that uses this thing called the internet and helps people do foreign exchange trades over it. And we ended up with two buddies from Goldman, one from ABN's, who set up ABN's equity options business, and we set out to go and help them use this internet thing to externalize their capital markets businesses. And so that was out of frustration, because I'm not a very good employee, but this is probably the easiest way to say it. The Currency Cloud thing was, I was on the trading floor in Dresdner, and I was trying to exchange some money into euros. It's a reasonable, healthy amount of money to exchange, and this chap was trying to charge me 2%. And I said, I've got 6 trading screens in front of me. I can tell you 2% is not the right price. And there's a chap called Steve Lemon, who's actually got escalated to. He said, oh, you're a professional, and we'll take it down to 0.2%. And that was much more amenable to use it. But when I actually got home, when the money arrived 2 days later, it was on spot, they asked me to download a PDF, print it out, write my payment instructions, and go and fax it back to them. I don't have a fax machine, and the nearest fax machine is in the village, 20 minutes walk away. So that annoyed me, and so I thought just responsible. One of the bits I was responsible in Dresdner was the retail market making on London Stock Exchange. We were number one by volume on there, and the machines did all the market making. So we did 14,000 trades a day, and all the settlement of that and everything. Equities is a lot more complex product than FX, and that annoyed me enough. The pricing side, the lack of automation, to say why did I go into the retail world when I founded what's now become Currency Cloud, but was initially RabbitFX, a retail broker. And why it changed to be Currency Cloud was because I met these two individuals called Tarvin and Christo, who are the founders of TransferWise, when they had a PowerPoint deck. And I think Naz will remember it because Naz was there at the time as well. And we're sort of teaching them foreign exchange, and then hearing how they talked about retail customers meant I knew absolutely nothing about retail, but I did know about infrastructure, and that was the main sort of pivot into Currency Cloud. And Naz, you were part of that journey as well. I think you're the first person who was a professional marketeer that turned up and definitely told us we had no idea about retail. It's a good choice to go into the business of plumbing.
Yeah, I completely agree with the sentiment. Plumbing is fantastic. I also remember having those coffees with Tabat and Christo, talking to them about foreign exchange, and look at where they're at now. Trying to even catch their eye these days is a whole different ball game, right? TransferWise becoming such a Goliath that it has. So Currency Cloud has been successful, but you've stuck with the infrastructure theme. You set up now Railsbank. Was it three or 4 years ago? Was it, Nigel?
4 years ago.
Yeah.
We started on the journey. Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you sort of say, right, okay, I want to do something else. I want to build this new company, Railsbank, and make it into something new. What was the initiative behind that?
I was sailing with my co-founder, Clive. And I've known Clive since I was 13 years old. I went to school with him, university with him. And when he left the Royal Navy, he joined Evolution as our first head of biz dev. So we'd worked together for it. So if you remember Nick Bourne as the CTO of Currency Cloud, he also used to work there as well. And we had this dads and daughters and no mothers. So it's my father, so the grandfather with Clive, and his godfather to one of my daughters. So we had a sort of like no mothers and no vegetables weekend sailing. So you could eat what you wanted. So you had curry, no vegetables, pancakes, whatever you want them type thing. And Clive was just left a 14,000 person, 900 million sterling turnover, privately held business where he's CIO. And we were talking about tech infrastructure because AWS has really started to come into the forefront at that moment in time back in 2016. Beforehand, it was great, but it started really sort of getting up on the curve, and that was saying, couldn't they be doing something like that for banking? As I was just saying, it's frustrating building Currency Cloud. It's frustrating for like the guys at TransferWise, Revolut, especially anybody, Monzo and everything in the cards world who are doing the cards infrastructure and everything. It would take them 2 years until you've actually, or 18 months to be fair, sometimes 2 years, and $2 to $3 million before you actually got a customer actually using a product. And so that frustration I was talking about said, well, why don't we just do like Amazon have done? They've taken the world of data centers. You also mentioned that on Twilio as well. And they take the world of telco. Let's build an infrastructure play that does that for all financial services. And that's where we decided to go. We decided, first of all, to test the value proposition with customers and anybody who would listen to us. So we spent actually 9 months with a PowerPoint deck, sticking it in front of people's noses and trying to find what excited people or not, because features don't excite people, value propositions, your why you do something, the good old Simon Sinek thing, TED Talk. So that's what we spent a ton of time focusing on then. We came up with this Access Global Banking and 5 lines of code and proudly ripped off Stripe. And we could have saved 9 months by doing a bit more research up front and using the Stripe, it's got its value prop.
Yeah. I mean, you've gone through quite an incredible journey. This is now spanning, what, 15, 16 years in total, right, running your own businesses. I mean, there must be things that you have learned and seen over this time that has improved each and every business iteration that you've gone through. I mean, if I was to ask you, Nigel, what are the sort of three things, the three absolute essentials that you find when in your journey to success and building companies, what would those top three things be? What has been critical in making sure that the businesses go forward? Because your businesses have been a fantastic success.
Sure. First thing is people. People make everything happen, and that is utterly vital. So you've got to. We had an evolution. We had an amazing culture of just do the right thing and things. It was a great team, and so and if you just look at any sort of in sports or anything, say rugby, the England team won the World Cup, and when Clive Woodward was the manager. And he got a whole set of diverse people together, but working for the same set of core values. He wasn't called core values; it was the teamship rules, he called them. And the same thing. If then after he left, after they won the World Cup, and Martin Johnson ran it, and this is no disrespect to Martin Johnson, so I actually know him and his brother. The team became a team of Martin Johnsons, so they lost all diversity. They were different sized Martin Johnsons, but it was the same sort of core value set, and so wasn't super diverse. And then they lost for 2 years, pretty much. So team and getting diverse team of people, and diverse doesn't mean positive diversity, it just means hard people and values rather than just on skills, and because skills you can teach. Get the right people and the right thing, write something about them is incredibly important, and then you build on top of that. So you really do look for talent. Grey hair is important too. For example, we're launching credit product at the moment, and if you something like credit, you want to have somebody who's lost a few quid to understand. I think Monzo got hit to understand that when they launched their credit product. So grey hair is important, but grey hair, and then you need talent. Really talented individuals that are sponges who can learn stuff and are passionate about it. So it's that getting the sort of core values, getting passion, giving them. And the second thing, out of three, so it's people, but the people need direction. And by giving people clarity of that's where you're going, everything else falls into place. Don't get involved with people's execution, because everybody has their own style of execution. Give them direction, and you can keep them pointed in the right place. And so one thing which we didn't use before didn't use incumbency cloud, and perhaps should have, which we use to all the time now in Railsbank, which is a thing called OKRs, objectives, key results, that Google's run on since 6 employees. Intel invented it. It's a very good structure for not setting objectives and key results that you beat people up on. The whole thing is a discussion and a reflection every week that you're going in the right direction. And it helps people realize you've got too much on your plate, which is a disaster of everybody. And everybody's trying to do too much. So if it's not in your OKRs, don't worry about it. It's okay. If you see what I mean. And it's interesting when you get people into that vibe and that cadence, that they suddenly start working much more effectively with less stress, because you just say to them, look, it's not on there, I don't care about it, you're creating your own stress. So, and then the whole team, because these are all open source, can see what everybody else is doing, and then everything relates up to what the company ones are. And so that using that and giving clear direction and allowing people the flexibility to execute in their own style is an important thing. And the third thing is really about value proposition. Go and build something people want. So figure out where your pain points are and everything. Massively involve customer in everything. As Railsbank, we spend a huge amount of time with customers, and even though we're building a a pure platform, just like Salesforce, everybody gets the same thing. It all depends what features you've got turned on or not. You still work with the customers to get A, do I solve your pain points? B, customers will give you what we call insights, as opposed to, we don't call them feature requests, we don't call them requirements, we call them insights, because you then bring together a lot of these insights to actually find the real pain point or the real value point that you can then create a feature to deliver to. And so it's that whole value prop, value discovery, experimenting, and not thinking that something is a requirement and must be done, because generally it isn't. It's expressed by different ways, the same thing. So those three things, I think, together can help you create a great company, and the rest of it's just passion, okay, and just getting up every morning and making sure you're there. You're the first person in, and making sure everybody's in the right direction, and let people do their own thing, get their job done themselves, and then be there if you need help.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the people element. I mean, we know each other, and you know that I completely agree with you on this. That people are absolutely critical, but you've now expanded into 3 regions. You're in Europe, in the US, and now in Asia. You were telling me just before we went live how you've grown from 17 people about 20 months ago to over 120 people now.
190.
190, did you say? Wow. Okay. Sorry. Apologies, Nigel. I misheard the number. I was thinking of Finley maybe or something like that. But 190 people, that's phenomenal growth. I mean, managing as CEO, leading a team of 17, which is quite intimate, to leading a team and an organization of 190. How's that transition been for you? What is the big change for you in terms of how you communicate and continue to inspire those teams?
Key thing is, again, giving clear objectives to it. Number 2 is the organization always changes. And so everybody's got to accept every 3 months you need to tweak it because you've grown up a bit more. And an organization at 17 people doesn't have the execution the execution controls that you need on say 100 to 150 people or so. So you need to change it and grow it as is an organic thing. So don't think because it says a structure chart. A structure chart has to maintain structure. It doesn't. It needs to be fluid. So that's one thing, and so grow with it. And then it's just working the rule of 6 of only have 6 direct reports, because that's only people you. Because if you spread yourself too thin, and as a CEO of one of our competitors, I had like something like 70 direct reports, that's just insane. Because you've got to give back and give direction and discuss and everything. So you can only really do that with 6 people in general. Yep. Some people will do more. So then you need to work and figure out who are the leaders. Not everybody are leaders. It doesn't mean they're not a great part of the team, but there's leaders who lead, and there's people who contribute as well. All are necessary to build a team. So you start building it up like that, and then the next thing is struggle. Okay, we've got a London-based organization that has offices in Vilnius, in Sri Lanka, in Vietnam, in Singapore, and London. And now we've had to revamp that again because we've got Santa Monica, Munich, Vilnius, London, Newcastle. We just opened up in Philippines, Malaysia, and we're rolling out in Indonesia soon. And we've also got Singapore, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka. So you've got to then have a different way of working, which we've basically put a chief operating officer who's responsible for go-to-market, so customer, product, and operations in each region, and have global standards. And we're just figuring it out amongst ourselves how to execute that well. But it then frees up the local teams to deliver the P&L for that region and understand the customers, because a customer's buying habits in Singapore are very different from buying habits in London, and are very different from the US. Even though the US speaks the same language, it's a fundamental different buying approach. And so you do need to have a global product, like the iPhone is global, our APIs are global, but underneath it, we call them our Rails, are all localized for and our value prop for the local market. And so and then your org structure has to reflect that, because customers do want, say, customer success teams. They want them in time zone. They don't want a call center customer success team, because part of customer success, especially in our industry, which is more enterprise, is a relationship as well, and being there for the customer, making the customer successful, making the customers, consumers, and SMEs have delightful financial experiences, and you build that up. But you can only do that if you're local and deeply understand the consumers of your customer in that market. And the Singaporean consumer, for example, loves reward points on different cards. And in the UK, people don't care about them all that much. But in Singapore, it's a super important thing. So you've got a different type of consumer, and you've got to understand that. You understand a consumer, you can help your customers service those consumers.
And with the, if I could sort of maybe now switch maybe more to the business side of it and the industry as a whole. I mean, payments is going through tremendous change. You know, I think over the past 15 years, you know, I've seen, you always think that there's no more to be done, but it's continuously changing. And still, I think so much more to do. COVID-19 obviously saw a massive, I guess, spurt particularly in digital payments. From your perspective, I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Nigel, but you're servicing both sort of maybe some of the more technological digital fintech companies, but now increasingly also servicing traditional institutions. Is that right?
Yes, so yeah, we've got two main sort of segments, which is startups, which need financial services. Some are fintech, some are not, some are prop tech, and others who need embedded finance in their customer journey. And then there's brands, people like supermarkets, people like telcos, and others who also want to embed financial services in it. And the way we look at them, our main value to them is we're an enabling technology, an enabling platform, an enabling business. So we're not doing displacement. So we don't sell into banks where everything's a displacement. So if you do core banking to a bank, you've got to put something else out of the way. It's a very difficult sale. And it's a long sales cycle. We're all about enablement. So we choose our segments where we win by enabling customers to do stuff they didn't think they could do so fast at such a good price point, and be able to scale their business. So we have this concept of taking a customer on a journey of prototyping on our sandboxes, then launching and then scaling that whole journey of their product. And scaling means going cross border as well, and we can then take them into new territories. So it's that's how we approach it.
And I mean, dealing with sort of the larger corporates, I mean, you know, there's a lot of talk about how the integration, the sales cycles tend to be longer, and I guess you balance that with talking with smaller companies. But what are some of the key barriers that you've come across that have been frustrating for you in dealing with the larger institutions?
Yeah, it's. I think there's a sort of change pattern we've noticed. Beforehand, you always came across the "it's not invented here" syndrome, as in internal technology departments and stuff. But I think the world, because of the sort of API generation that we're in at the moment, have been in the past probably 10 years. The concept of Lego is on the technology guys' head, and they realise they can have more fun by using Lego that does plumbing to do interesting stuff. So that was one. The other piece is you've got to have solid operations. You've got to have solid credibility. You've got to have respect for things like security. So getting with ISO 27001 accredited, for example. You've got to do all that to play in larger companies. And to be honest, we also need to do that because a startup should expect that anyway. It's just they've probably got less bargaining power, but they get it by working with us because we have those accreditations. So and but the sales cycle is still the same. It's we say prototype fast, get to market in 2 months or less. Our fastest to market's been 8 days from idea to Apple App Store or lightning8.org, which my co-founder did. and that was a neobank built in 8 days with a card in its own brand, launched on the Apple App Store.
Wow.
And yeah, he nearly died after those 8 days. He didn't sleep, and the team. But so if you go into some of the marketing area of a supermarket, it's the same thing. You say, let's get this prototyped and into market with you, and then you can see with people like your value prop, you've only spent say 250K instead of 3 million, and you've done an experiment, and that's super cheap for a large organization. They've got data. They then go to the either head of marketing or the board. Say, we've got this data. We've got real data. We've run an experiment we've put it to the market in 3 months or less, so 2 months. That's one of our customers, one of our supermarkets did. And we've now got this data, and we think there's something here that we can use embedded finance to change customer behavior and get more engaged, win share off their competitors. So it's an interesting thing how we've taken this sort of startup world and put it into the innovation and experimentation part. So without going in with saying this needs to be a 3-year contract. And the way we do that, we're just very proud of the product because our sandboxes, you can use that talking to us. Real Money Sandbox, you can talk without talking to us. And then you can get live super fast, and you're unable to do something rather than spending 6 months negotiating a contract. And generally, we find customers can be prototyped using our sandboxes before they've even done the NDA to our competitors. So
wow, okay.
That's a sort of pace we're bringing in.
I mean, I think you and I quite sort of sometimes violently agree about the fact that transactions are the core of financial services, right? And what you're doing is using the transaction channels in many ways and enabling them with ways for people to make those transactions more effective, be it through the payment in itself or through the credit that may come with it on the back end. Amazon and the way it's expanding its reach as a distributor in payments and financial services is also quite amazing, quite honestly. And this is probably the future of financial services, really, and what financial services should be. You're now dealing with across all these different sites. Where, if I may touch on this, which region, the US, you're going into, Europe, Asia, where are you seeing the most opportunity and the ease of doing business at the moment?
The ease of doing business suddenly has come to a flight halt in Europe with Brexit.
Yeah.
Okay. On many levels. I say that as a proud Irish European. I think the US is a massive market for different. US and Southeast Asia. They're all difficult, to be honest. None of them are easy. The opportunity, though, is really in I think in Southeast Asia at the moment, the real growth opportunity, because you have within Singapore, you've got 550 million people, of which half are unbanked or so, or they have limited access to financial services. And you've got a region I think will come out of the economic impact of COVID a lot quicker than Europe and the US. So there's an opportunity there. But we're playing a cycle game because US will then light up and come out of the economic issues that will be hitting us next year. Europe. So there's different cycles. And so we can dial up the investment and dial up the growth in line with where we think the economic macroeconomics are looking in the region. So we're driven not just by hey, as a customer base here, we're actually driven by economic trends as well from where we focus. In the US, I think the real opportunity there is we haven't gone into the Me Too business of Synapse and of Galileo and all those debit issues. We've gone into credit because it's a $4 trillion market. There's only 4 people doing it. And we're going to have a crack at JP Morgan and others and see if we can give that a good go. And we're lucky there. We've got, Dov, who is at Currency Cloud with us and lit up the US. He phoned me for a job reference from leaving Green Dot, and so I gave him a job instead of a job reference.
Okay.
And then he's hired the whole product team out of Green Dot, who's a big major player in that market. And we've got the UX team out of Uber Money. So we've got a fantastic team in the US. But that's going to be slightly behind the curve of Europe, where we started, and slightly behind the curve of Southeast Asia, where we're pushing up. but they're all hard. US is hard because the regulation is an absolute pain, and it's the whole way. It's very, very still fragmented market. Europe is actually easier to execute in because of the payments market. I think regulation is easier. You can be like ourselves, a non-bank financial institution, and still clear sterling with Bank of England. And Southeast Asia is difficult because as I say, it's an emerging market. You've got to fight hard to get your licenses and everything, and you've got to really deeply understand. You've got to be local and invest locally to get the rewards. You can't just come in, here's product, and take it. You've got to invest, but spend time understanding localization, investing in local team and everything. But the rewards are there because they're like you've got 220 million people in the Philippines and others. Well, the US is 330, but you've got a couple of Indonesia similar sort of population sizes. So you've got massive markets, and so they've all got opportunity, and hence that's why we split the company into like 3 chief operating officers in each region, develop them as essentially 3 startups within Railsbank. So the local offices look like startups, if you see what I mean. So you generate that energy again, you repeat the energy, and give them the tools they need to get in there, which is investment, support, global access, standards like accreditations, and things to do their job. So we'll see. I think the real opportunity though is a global one on this embedded finance, because brands. I'll use an example. Lululemon has makes sports gear, and it's all about empowerment of the individual. So why can't you take that brand value of empowerment, empowerment of women, to financial empowerment of women, and have a Lululemon account and savings and investments, which allow you to, with a real sort of empowerment drive behind it. And so those are the types, and that's a global brand. So it's an interesting trend that's happening. So I think that the trend is the opportunity, as opposed to just a local market.
No, absolutely. I mean, again, I violently agree. Well, I wouldn't say violently. I just agree with you on this one, Nigel. I mean, obviously, we set up Railsbank in Berlin to do a very similar thing, but didn't have your kind of expertise on board to build it quite as quickly.
Just saying on that though, I mean, you guys, when you set up Railsbank and everything, I was talking to actually York at Solaris yesterday on a panel, and I was just congratulating on it. We compete, but they got that banking license in
8 months.
Unbelievable record time without using.
Well, it's caused problems for everyone else, Nigel, because specifically because of Railsbank, they then started going in reverse at the ESMA and the EBA and actually making it more onerous to get the banking license.
Okay.
Yeah, it was our fault. I'm sorry about that. I'd say it's BaFin's fault for letting us have the license that quickly. But anyway, one last quick question. Maybe just sort of, I was reading, well, actually, one comment on what you were just saying. I was reading an interesting study yesterday from McKinsey, who were talking about how Europe lags behind in innovation and startups. And one of the core things they talked about was that although we are one market, particularly from the financial services side, the fragmentation between the countries still causes issues. So it was interesting to hear you say how the US is incredibly fragmented as well, as they see US as the shining light.
I'd really track on that one. In the US, you've got Visa, MasterCard, their card schemes, and then you've got 20 other schemes for your ATMs and everything else like that, massively fragmented. But
well, Europe doesn't have a card scheme. That's been talked about quite a lot as well recently, whether Europe should compete in that. I don't know how they would set that up or how they would coordinate to do that.
That doesn't need one. Open banking could be the card scheme once they open banking with an insurance policy, essentially. So you have the concept of chargebacks within. At the moment, it's too high risk, I think, for consumers. There's no protection. If you put protection in there, that could definitely take over as the European card scheme.
Okay. So I'm going to turn over now, I think, to some questions from the audience. We have a couple come in, some from our usual suspects. Anthony, would you do the honors of inviting people on stage? Shall we start with Dan to ask his question? It's always good to see Dan. Dan is a loyal supporter of our webinars.
Yeah, many times.
We can start off with a question by Thibaut.
All right, we've got Thibaut then. All right, Thibaut, Mr. Debarcy.
Hi, Nigel. Hi, Nasir. Good morning. Nigel, I've read what you've already said about the acquisition of Wirecard UK, the difference between their acquisition business, their issuing business, and of course why you were buying the assets. But as we are a closer group here, I'm sure you have a lot more to say about how you saw this whole debacle, and also the nature of the acquisition deal you made with Wirecard.
Sure, Thibaut. Yeah, I can say what I can say stuff, but I'm still under heavy NDAs on a ton of things.
Understand.
So the Wirecard, as you know, most of the business was the acquiring side, and a lot of it was the high risk acquiring. There was a lot of low risk acquiring, but the reason they have low risk is to offset the essentially chargeback ratios of the high risk. So that's the only reason they had low risk, because of their high risk business. And there was just, you've seen all the stuff in the press and the stories and everything that's gone on with how they ran that business. On the reason we looked at the issuing business is A, we're in the business of issuing. B, we've actually always respected the guys in Newcastle, because it used to be the Newcastle Building Society. And everybody's known them in the card issuing market since day one, because they're the only people who were taught fintechs. So they made it, and then Wirecard bought them. So number one, it's all, okay, there's some good people there, and it's a good business. And then there's check out, has it been infected by the mothership, as you might say, and haven't to any major extent or anything. But so that was good, and then there is some good customers there. And what's more concerning for us was the Wirecard moment and the impact to our market in fintech, because it was I think it's our Enron moment of what Wirecard Germany did essentially to our market, to lose confidence of consumers in anything that happens to have a Wirecard brand on the back, and ergo fintech on the back, because they originally were issuers for Monzo and a few others, quite a few others. So we also think that we play a role in our market to create an orderly market as well. So if we can get the economics of an acquisition to work and create an orderly market, we're super close to the FCA because of our status as a clearer of sterling. We're above all the other. There's only about 2 or 3 of us who are well above all the other e-money license holders, because we're audited by the Bank of England essentially, because we are allowed to hold their money, hold our money there. So we've got to be audited for that. And so we've got that dialogue to see if we can create the orderly market, do the right thing for the card holders, because otherwise, also we'd have the impact to us of being selfish here was if we're getting our customers issuing and they realize it's a fintech platform issuing card holders, that's going to lose faith as well, because this is another Wirecard. So we try to bring all that together to get a good outcome for everybody, give a dignified out for Wirecard to do something, so they came out of it positively as opposed to negatively. And that's the story. That's essentially the story of it. There's a few things. There's a lot of work going on now to make all that happen. As you can probably guess, it's quite a big project. And we've been working super closely with Barclays, who've been amazing to work with. And because I've had a relationship with Barclays back through Currency Cloud back for many years, they I'm a client as well, and they take us quite seriously, which is good to know. And they're good at having a dialogue, which is respectful as well for our industry, and the FCA, and most importantly the card holders and customers. And so end of November, I think, is when the last one comes across, and then we've also got to get those who are issuing in Europe through our European license, so that all carries on working. So it's an awful lot of work to achieve in it. But I think we've also, one of the things we have been super impressed with is the team up in Newcastle have been amazing. We've also got we've opened an office in Munich specifically because we got approached by quite a number of Wirecard AG employees come and work with us, and so we've got some great people there from risk, some people from onboarding side, and others. So skills, some of the skills we needed to hire anyway, and skills these guys were doing already. And in Singapore, Visa essentially asked us to take on a set of customers because of what was going on, and they were amazing. Our team was actually amazing over there, led by Justin Zhao, who's ex-Visa. He and the team managed to port across crypto.com literally in almost days to get them over, which is a huge thing because their money was about to be cut off by MAS and had to return funds, which would have been a massive impact to the cardholder's influence, sorry, the brand of the customer. So all in all, it's been a lot of hard work, a lot of interesting discussions, and some interesting due diligence, and that's as far as I'll say.
But without saying any secret, I mean, were you following the Wirecard story in the Financial Times for 2 years at a personal level?
Yes, I have, because a colleague of mine was one of the biggest customers.
Okay.
And I openly admit I've even met Jan Maslik as well. So we've been following what they're up to and things. And because I came in the capital markets world, I know the hedge funds that were short as well. Colleagues of mine were over there. So it's one of the ones you hoped they were wrong, because prior to sort of losing $2 billion down the back of the sofa somewhere, that was a very highly respected company.
Yes.
And could have carried on being that, to be honest, because there's a ton of really good people in that company.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Thibaut. Anthony, can we turn to Dan now for his question about Visa?
Please, Dan, go ahead.
Good morning, good afternoon. I know that Visa's both an investor partner and a partner on projects globally. Can you just talk a little bit more about your relationship with Visa? And also a second question about the fairness inclusion as part of your internal ethos. Thanks so much.
Sure. There was the fairness and inclusion side. The key thing is we have got a massively diverse team of people from all sorts of different backgrounds. I think the statistics, we've got something like 55 or 55 plus languages in the company. And so key thing is all about diverse teams win, and doesn't really matter of your background. If you're the right values and you can be part of our team, we're happy to. If you're not part of our values, we're not the place to work. So we're very sort of clear on that. On the Visa relationship, yeah, Visa's an investor in us. They are super supportive, especially where we started a relationship, which was here in Singapore. And subsequently, we've got the guys who we started a relationship with, a guy called Stephen Breen, has actually joined us because he moved back to Dublin from Singapore. We've got a relationship for BIN sponsoring, for program management, for card, for soon-to-be processing as well. They provide us access to customer. They provide us the credibility that they've actually audited us to be before investing in us. They provide insights into the market, access to their product sets, and the interesting thing is why we're super aligned with Visa, also very close to MasterCard too, is they're both shifting into companies that are movers of money and value rather than being payment schemes. And if you see, Visa and MasterCard are connected to pretty much every bank in the world, pretty much ex-China, and they through their acquisitions and their investments, for example, they bought Earthport, they bought Plaid, and the equivalent of that's MasterCard bought heavy investment in Currency Cloud and others. You can see they're setting up a network for moving money. And if you look at Visa Direct, which is come out at the starting gate now, that I can move money on credit as in using Visa credit for settlement pretty much anywhere in the world, pretty much instantly. And that is quite a threat, I think, for a lot of SWIFT and others. This is a commercial operation for moving money, as opposed to a charity, as you might say.
Yeah, I remember having those discussions way back when with Visa, more so with Visa than MasterCard, is that given that they have these incredible networks, why aren't they doing more with them to solve bigger problems? And so it's great to see all these things now finally beginning to happen. I mean, you mentioned that dreaded word SWIFT. I mean, that infrastructure does need a bit of an upgrade, really. I mean, I still, you and I both know this, Nigel. It's incredible how we have less certainty over an FX transaction and shipping money internationally than, say, shipping a physical mug from Europe to Singapore. It's incredible, really. Just don't understand. Listen, we have a question on your entrepreneurial journey, Nigel, from Michael. Can we get Michael online, Anthony?
Yes, right away. Michael, are you there?
Yeah, hi guys. Can you hear me? Because I'm outdoors, so
yes, we can hear you, Michael. Carry on.
There's background noise. Apologies for that. Hey, first of all, thanks, Nigel, for sharing a lot of the stuff and your journey. I was just kind of interested in understanding. People talk about failing fast. You must have come across the odd failure. What major failure have you had? How did you deal with it? Is there anything that you can share with any potential entrepreneurs or other people looking at entering and venturing in the payments market?
Yes, I used to give a course in Startup Bootcamp on failure with the co-founder of Startup Bootcamp. So yes, failed a ton of times on things, and from customer losses, from product not being right for customer, from we've haven't understood something and launched it when it shouldn't have been launched, all sorts of stuff. Making the wrong comment in a meeting and things. Key thing with failure is brushing yourself up, understanding it, and moving on. And that's a super important thing. And this word pivot gets used an awful lot. It's some people pivot just because they think something's a failure, but haven't actually analysed, was it the business was a failure, or was it the fact that there wasn't a pain point there? Whatever, it's trying to understand what is the fundamental issue, and it's figuring out what went wrong. And you see it the best, say sports and say rugby teams that I'm super close to, is they figure out why they went wrong and they fix it. It's not about finger pointing. It's not about. It's about getting on somebody's beer tab. So if you do make a mistake and totally screw up, your beer tab goes through the roof and things. But you make it humorous and stuff. It's serious but humorous to make change and analyze it. I've been in situations where a CEO of a company didn't and refused to have a retrospective to find out something was a massive failure of the company and lost a marquee client. And that was very bad behaviour, and it's very, I think, disrespectful to the whole team doing something like that. Then the other things we at Currency Cloud in the early days, we used to have a thing called a goat, and if you did something utterly stupid, you won this goat, which got put in your desk, and it was a manky goat, so it wasn't pleasant to have in your desk. As a stuffed goat, wasn't it, a real one? And so they had the goat awards every week of who got the most goat points, and then they bought the beers on Friday night. And so it's allowing people failure, because failure is fine. We're all human beings, and that's what makes it interesting for us. Failure is something we do quite well, but it's the key thing about learning from it and moving on is important. And if in terms of philosophically looking at values-based, you look at the New Zealand rugby team. If they make a mistake, they don't care about it because there's always somebody there to pick up the ball or do something with it. And so they're trained to expect them to play brilliantly, but they also expect they're going to fail at certain things. They're going to drop it, or the person's going to but there's always somebody behind them to pick it up. And so failing is okay, and there's cultures where failing is a real no-no, and that's quite an uncomfortable culture to live in, and having seen the output of some of like suicides and stuff like that from founders who the companies haven't gone as well as they should have done, or they're suddenly thought it's going well, and then everything just crashes and stops because not admitting it's not going well. So admitting and understanding failure is a good thing. And figuring out how to change or move on, or even just say, hey, that was a failure, and then stop it completely. That's a thing. It's more a philosophical approach we take on it, and just be realistic that everyone fails at some point in time, even Djokovic.
I would bring up a related point there. Nigel, if I may be quite open and honest, has been a great influence on my career and the way I look to lead and work in organizations. And a couple of particular points, but one specifically is the SFW test. Nigel, I'm going to let you expand on that because it does relate a little bit to failure. There's sometimes a bit of reaction can sometimes lead to bad decision making. And I still remember Nigel patting me on the shoulder and says, Nas, SFW. So Nigel, please explain SFW to the listeners.
Yeah, it's when you've got something which like a value prop to customer, or you've got something like we do super excited about, we do X, Y, and Z to a customer. I won't use the word because I've just literally got on the phone for people talking about SFW because there was an SFW moment in Railsbank. And
okay.
And you say, well, what if you're a customer? What's your reaction? SFW means so fucking what? You say, I do X, Y, and Z, and you think, well, okay, does anybody care about that? Is it meaningful to the customer? Is it valuable to the customer? And it's generally a good way of filtering out useless features on product. Because I'm a total believer of strip out everything to the bare minimum you need, and then build on functionality and stuff that's totally aligned to customer and things. So it's just a mechanism of testing. Does this mean something of value to somebody? And it's just an old trading floor way of saying it. Okay, so if somebody shouts you some news flow, it's the same sort of thing. Well, that's not really relevant to me or not. So it's a sort of harsh but friendly way of saying that's useless. I'll think it through again, that type of thing.
I think it's a fantastic mantra to have. Do we have any last? Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say, so it's just a couple of takeaways there. Then SFW should be a mantra. Fail fast, great, accept it, acknowledge, and move on. And thanks again also for acknowledging that Barclays, being an ex-Barclays guy myself, appreciate you saying that Barclays has been understanding the game. We actually had the Gnome Awards in Barclays for people who really, F up. They'd get a garden gnome. Anyway, thanks for sharing, Nigel.
I love the garden gnome idea. I love that.
It's a bit like the goat. Anthony, do we have any more time, or is that wrapping up time now?
It's wrapping up time.
Okay. Listen, thank you all for tuning in, but most specifically, thank you, Nigel, for being so open with us, to make the time to come and talk with us. Really appreciate it. Nigel, always enjoyed talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you in person very, very soon. And again, thank you to the audience and listeners for joining in. Thank you all.
Thank you.